The Professor's Final Lesson. I spent 50 years of my life inside the walls of a university. I was a professor of comparative literature. My life was built on logic, on footnotes, on critical analysis. I didn't believe in fairy tales, and frankly I thought religion was the oldest fairy tale of them all. To me, God was a concept invented by ancient men to explain the thunder and the tides. I was a woman of science and reason. I was proud of my scepticism. When I retired at 75, I thought I had figured it all out. I had my books, my small apartment in Boston, and my memories. But then my husband, Arthur, died. We had been married for 52 years. When he left, the silence he left behind wasn't just quiet, it was heavy. It crushed me. All my books, all my logic, none of it could explain where he had gone. None of it could tell me if I would ever see him again. For the first time in my life, my intellect failed me. To escape the silence, I decided to travel. I didn't want to go to Paris or Rome. I had been there a dozen times. I wanted something different, something that would shock my system back to life. So, at the age of 78, I booked a ticket to Morocco. My friends told me I was mad. A woman of your age, alone in North Africa, they said. That I was stubborn. I packed my bags, bringing my scepticism with me like a shield. I arrived in Fez in late October. The city was an assault on the senses. The smell of spices, the donkeys navigating narrow alleyways, the colours of the leather tanneries. It was chaotic, loud, and completely foreign. I walked through the markets like a ghost, observing but not touching. I looked at the people with a mix of pity and curiosity. I saw them stopping their work when the call to prayer, the Adhan, rang out. Shopkeepers would leave their stalls unattended, just throwing a cloth over their goods. How foolish, I thought. Someone could steal everything. But nobody did. The turning point happened on my 4th day. I had hired a guide, a man named Hassan. He was in his 60s, with a face weathered by the sun and a gentle smile that never seemed to leave his lips. We were walking up a steep hill to see an ancient fortress. I was struggling. My old knees were protesting, and the heat was oppressive. Suddenly, I felt dizzy. The world spun, and I collapsed onto a stone bench. I was gasping for air, terrified that I was having a heart attack right there in a strange land. Hassan didn't panic. He didn't call an ambulance immediately because we were deep in the old city where cars couldn't reach. Instead, he ran to a nearby vendor, grabbed a bottle of cold water, and sat on the dusty ground at my feet. He poured water into his hands and cooled my neck, my forehead. He spoke to me in soft English. "Breathe, Madam Elizabeth, breathe. Allah is the healer. You are safe." He sat with me for an hour until my strength returned. When I tried to pay him extra for his trouble, he refused. He looked offended. "To help a guest is a duty," he said. "I expect my reward from my Creator, not from your wallet." That night, back in my hotel room, a converted riad with an open courtyard, I couldn't sleep. The window was open. It was 4:30 in the morning. The city was dead silent. And then it began. Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar! The dawn prayer. Usually I closed the window to shut out the noise, but that night, after what Hassan did, I listened. The voice was hauntingly beautiful. It wasn't just a man shouting, it was a soul calling out to other souls. It echoed against the ancient walls, bouncing off the tiles. It felt like the earth itself was singing. For the first time in 78 years, I felt small. Not weak, but small. like a speck of dust in a vast, designed universe. I started to cry. I didn't know why. I sat on the edge of my bed in my silk pyjamas, weeping as the Arabic words washed over the city. I felt a yearning, a hunger I hadn't realized was starving me. I wanted what Hassan had. I wanted that peace. I wanted to know who he was talking to when he said Creator. I returned to Boston a week later, but the city of Fez came with me in my heart. The university library, once my sanctuary, felt cold and sterile. I went to the section on religion, a section I had never visited in 5 decades. I pulled out a translation of the Quran. I took it home, intending to analyse it. I wanted to deconstruct it, find the contradictions, and prove to myself that my emotional moment in Morocco was just exhaustion. I sat at my desk with a red pen, ready to mark it up like a bad student essay. I started reading. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. I read about the bees. I read about the formation of the embryo. I read about the orbits of the planets. My red pen hovered over the pages, but I couldn't find the errors I was looking for. Instead, I found a voice that spoke with absolute authority. It didn't sound like the writing of a man from the desert in the 7th century. It sounded like the architect of the universe describing his blueprints. But the verse that broke me was in the chapter called The Iron. It said, "Has the time not come for those who believe that their hearts should submit in all humility to the remembrance of Allah?" I dropped the book. It was as if the book was speaking directly to me, to Elizabeth, the stubborn old professor. Has the time not come? You are 78. You have studied every great author in history, Shakespeare, Dante, Homer, but you have ignored the author of your own soul. Has the time not come? I fought it for months. I was afraid. What would my colleagues say? Elizabeth has gone senile, they would whisper. She's joined a cult. The arrogance of my intellect was a hard wall to break down. One winter evening, it was snowing outside, I was sitting by my fireplace, watching the flames. I thought about death. I thought about Arthur, and I realized that if I died tonight, I would die with a full brain, but an empty heart. I got up. I didn't know how to pray. I didn't know the movements. I just cleared a space on my Persian rug. I got down on my knees, and then I put my forehead on the floor. That position, the sujood, I had never done it in my life. The moment my forehead touched the ground, the dam broke. All the pride, all the degrees, all the professor titles, they drained out of me. I was just an old woman before her king. "If you are there," I whispered into the carpet, "guide me. Don't let me die like this." I stayed there for 10 minutes. When I sat up, the room looked the same, but I was different. The anxiety that had gripped me since Arthur died was gone. I didn't know any Muslims in Boston. I looked up a mosque online. It was in a suburb I had never visited. I took a taxi there on a Friday. I covered my hair with a scarf I had bought in Morocco, the only souvenir I had kept. I walked in, terrified. I stood at the back of the women's section. A young girl, maybe 20 years old, saw me. She didn't look at me like I was a crazy old intruder. She smiled. She came over and brought me a chair. "Welcome," she said. After the sermon, I waited for the imam. I told him, "I have read your book. I believe it is the truth. But I am old. Is it too late for me?" He smiled, a smile that reminded me of Hassan in Fez. "Mother," he said, "it is never too late. The sun does not set until the very end of the day. You are just in time. I took my shahada right there in his office. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. That was 5 years ago. I am 83 now. My arthritis is worse and I move slowly. I cannot travel to Morocco anymore. But I don't need to. I found what I was looking for. I look back at my life, at all those years spent in libraries chasing knowledge. I realized I was studying the shadows of the truth, but never looking at the light itself. Now I read the Quran every day with a magnifying glass. Every verse is a new discovery. My old friends from the university have stopped calling. They don't understand why I don't drink wine anymore, or why I pause our conversations to pray. They think I have lost my mind, but I smile at them. I haven't lost my mind. I have found my soul. I am preparing for my final journey now, not to a foreign country, but to my Lord. And for the first time in my life, I am not packing any baggage. I am going light. I am going with a heart that finally knows who it belongs to. My name was Elizabeth. It means God is my oath. I kept my name, because finally, after 80 years, I have fulfilled that oath. I am a Muslim, and I am finally free.